In the royal court of ancient India, a powerful and unforgettable scene unfolded. One that left a lasting impression on the Buddha and shaped his teachings for generations to come. The court of King Pasenadi of Kosala was a place of grandeur, politics, and shifting loyalties. On this particular day, 4 visitors approached the king, each presenting themselves as a friend, but each wearing a different mask of deception. The first visitor arrived bearing lavish gifts and words as sweet as honey. His charm was disarming, his praise relentless. Yet behind his polished facade lay ulterior motives. His generosity was not rooted in love or loyalty, but in manipulation. He gave only to gain. The second visitor spoke of grand visions and noble deeds. He boasted of bravery, wisdom, and high ideals. Yet his hands were soft, untouched by labor, and his words carried no weight of experience. He was a dreamer, yes, but a dangerous one, inspiring hope while delivering nothing. The third visitor bowed deeply, a friend of the court since childhood. His smile was familiar, his gestures warm. But behind his friendliness lurked betrayal. His loyalty was a performance, his intentions hidden. He was the kind of friend who smiles to your face but plots behind your back. And the fourth, perhaps the most dangerous of all, came with soft words, gentle hands, and an air of understanding. They offered comfort, companionship, and a false sense of peace. But their path, though scented with kindness, led only to ruin. They encouraged indulgence, distraction, and moral decay, all under the guise of love. From the shadows, the Buddha watched. He saw beyond the masks. He understood that not all who approach with friendship in their hearts come with good intentions. What he witnessed in that royal court would become a timeless teaching, a warning about 4 types of people who, if left unchecked, can slowly destroy your life. This moment took place over 2,500 years ago during a time of tremendous transformation in India. Cities were expanding rapidly, breaking traditional tribal and family bonds. The rise of the merchant class was upending ancient social structures, and people were forming new kinds of relationships outside familiar norms. In this changing world, people needed wisdom more than ever. And so the Buddha, deeply observant and compassionate, responded in a revolutionary way. Long before the rise of modern psychology, he created one of the earliest known profiles of toxic relationships, offering insight, clarity, and guidance that remains deeply relevant to this day. The Buddha identified specific patterns of harmful behavior in relationships, patterns that remain astonishingly relevant even in our modern world. These weren't vague or mystical warnings. Instead, they were clear, detailed descriptions of the kinds of people who may appear supportive on the surface, but whose presence in our lives can actually hold us back. We see these types everywhere today. In our workplaces, in online communities, in friendships, and sometimes even among those we consider closest to us. Together, these patterns form what the Buddha referred to as the 4 hindrances of fellowship. These are relationships that masquerade as beneficial but, in truth, obstruct our personal, emotional, and even spiritual growth. They drain our energy, cloud our judgment, and slowly chip away at our confidence and clarity. What makes the Buddha's insights so powerful is their psychological depth. He didn't just name these harmful types. He broke down exactly how they operate, why they are so dangerous, and most importantly, how we can recognize and protect ourselves from their influence. Unlike simple advice to avoid toxic people, the Buddha offered a deeper understanding of human behavior. He recognized that some individuals harm not out of malice, but out of habit, ignorance, or insecurity. Others may manipulate with charm, feign loyalty while hiding envy, or guide you gently down the wrong path under the illusion of care. These insights weren't just philosophical. They were practical tools for navigating human relationships with wisdom and awareness. In this video, we'll dive into the Buddha's original teachings and uncover the meaning behind these 4 hindrances. We'll explore ancient Buddhist texts, bring in vivid historical examples, and show how these same patterns continue to play out in our modern world. From office politics to social media influencers to personal relationships that feel off without explanation, we'll connect the ancient with the contemporary. But before we begin, a word of caution. What you're about to learn might shift your perspective. Once you start to see these patterns clearly, you may find yourself reevaluating some of the relationships in your life. Because once the mask is lifted, it becomes hard to unsee what lies beneath. This knowledge can be both liberating and unsettling, but ultimately, it empowers you to choose wiser connections and build relationships rooted in genuine support and mutual growth. Let us begin with the first type of false friend, the one the Buddha called Mittapatarupaka, which translates to one who merely imitates a friend. This is the person who wears the mask of friendship but lacks its essence. In today's words, we might call them the sweet talker, someone who uses charm as a weapon rather than as a bridge to genuine connection. Picture this: the bustling streets of ancient Rajagaha, filled with the vibrant energy of traders, buyers, and wandering monks. Among the market stalls and chanting monks walks a different kind of merchant, not one who trades in silk or spices, but one who trades in promises and praise. This individual seems generous with their words, always ready with a compliment or a smile. But look closer, and you'll notice something missing: sincerity. In the Sigalovada Sutta, the Buddha described this false friend in detail. He taught that such a person may flatter you, speak kindly to your face, and make grand declarations of loyalty, but they do so only when it serves their own interest. The Buddha warned that this type takes much but gives little, performs duties out of fear or obligation rather than love, and sticks around only when they stand to benefit. Their affection is transactional, not genuine. A powerful example of this comes from a tale passed down in the oral traditions of ancient India, a story about a wealthy merchant named Ananda. Not to be confused with the Buddha's devoted disciple, this Ananda was known across Rajagaha for his immense wealth and reputation as a trusting and generous man. One day, a charismatic stranger arrived at his door. This man spoke of exotic trade routes, promised to double Ananda's fortune, and knew all the right things to say. His charm was effortless, his timing perfect. Even when other merchants raised concerns, Ananda brushed them aside, seduced by the man's flattery. The stranger even made public donations to monasteries, further building his image. But the Buddha, staying nearby at the Bamboo Grove Monastery, noticed something peculiar. He observed 4 distinct behaviors that gave the man away: exaggerated flattery, reluctance to give unless seen by others, a constant focus on personal gain, and shallow loyalty. Through this story and the teachings of the Sigalovada Sutta, we learn to recognize Mittapatarupaka, not by their words, but by their patterns of behavior. Because true friendship isn't found in sweet talk, it's proven through consistent, selfless action. First, the man only gave when he expected something greater in return. His generosity wasn't genuine, it was transactional. Every small gift, every favor, was like a baited hook. He wasn't giving out of kindness, but to reel in something far more valuable. His generosity was a strategy, not a virtue, a calculated move to gain influence, trust, and ultimately control. Second, his kind words far outnumbered his kind actions. He spoke endlessly of future riches, golden opportunities, and grand plans. But when it came to delivering on his promises, there were always delays, always excuses. His promises dissolved like mist in the morning sun, and his explanations were as smooth as his lies. He lived in a world of fantasy, built on the scaffolding of empty assurances. Third, he constantly flattered Ananda, praising his intelligence, wealth, and generosity, especially when others were around to hear it. He built Ananda up with words, not to support him, but to manipulate him. His compliments were currency, used to buy trust and admiration. Yet, when Ananda truly needed support, real practical help, the man was nowhere to be found. His friendship was performative, vanishing when it mattered most. Fourth, and perhaps most dangerous of all, he began subtly isolating Ananda from his true friends. "They're just jealous of your success," he would whisper. "They don't understand our vision." This sowing of doubt and division was deliberate. The more isolated Ananda became, the more he relied on the false friend. This tactic, cutting off outside influence, allowed the deceiver to tighten his grip. The Buddha explained that these 4 behaviors, giving little while taking much, making empty promises, flattering without substance, and creating division, are the unmistakable marks of a false friend, the Mittapatarupaka. These people don't come into our lives to support us, they come to use us. The story of Ananda reaches a turning point when the stranger proposes a massive trade venture. He urges Ananda to liquidate most of his wealth, assuring him this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity will bring fortune beyond imagination. But by then, Ananda had started to see the pattern. He remembered the Buddha's words. He realized the gifts had stopped once the trust was secured, the promises were always just out of reach, and his real friends had been pushed away. The Buddha's teachings not only saved Ananda's fortune, they revealed something deeper, a timeless truth about human nature and the masks people wear. Because let's be honest, we've all met a Mittapatarupaka, maybe at work, online, or even in our inner circle. And once you know the signs, you can never unsee them. Modern versions of the sweet talker are everywhere. You'll find them in the workplace, the colleague who's overly friendly just before asking for a favor. They appear on social media as influencers promising quick wealth and success, often selling the illusion of prosperity. Sometimes, they're even in our closest circles, the friend who's generous only when others are watching, but disappears when you're truly in need. What makes the Buddha's insight into this type of person so remarkable is his deep understanding of human psychology. In the Dhammapada, he explains that the mind naturally seeks pleasure and avoids pain. Some individuals, whether consciously or not, learn to exploit this tendency in others. They become skilled at providing short bursts of pleasure, through compliments, promises, or gifts, but with little substance behind their words. These people don't always act with malicious intent. In fact, the Buddha recognized that some Mittapatarupaka deceive even themselves. They may truly believe they are good friends, unaware that their actions are driven by self-interest and manipulation. But the true danger of encountering a sweet talker goes far beyond financial loss or a single act of betrayal. The deeper harm lies in what it does to our capacity to trust. Each experience with such a person chips away at our ability to form genuine, lasting connections. We become more guarded, more skeptical, even of those who truly care for us. Still, the Buddha didn't offer these teachings to make us fearful or cynical. His purpose was to empower us with discernment. He taught that real friendship, unlike its counterfeit, grows stronger over time. True friends show up consistently, regardless of who's watching. They give without expecting anything in return. While the sweet talker uses generosity to deceive, the genuine friend uses it to connect and uplift. Our next type of false friend operates through a subtler form of deception, not through manipulation or flattery, but through inaction cloaked in grand intention. The Buddha called this person Vakaya Parama, which translates to one who is supreme in speech. But don't be misled by the title. This is no compliment. The empty promiser is someone whose words are big, bold, and often beautiful, but whose actions fail to live up to their claims. Their danger lies not in what they do, but in what they consistently fail to do. Unlike the sweet talker, who may dazzle you with generosity, the empty promiser operates more quietly, and you might be dealing with one right now without even realizing it. They often don't intend harm, but their repeated failure to follow through can slowly erode trust, drain energy, and create disappointment over time. The Buddha illustrated this type through a story. Imagine a young monk in ancient India, newly ordained and full of enthusiasm. Standing before the entire Sangha, he declares confidently that he will attain enlightenment within a month. He speaks with passion, elegance, and conviction. Other monks are impressed by his resolve. But as days turn into weeks, it becomes clear this monk spends more time talking about meditation than actually meditating. When challenged, he has long, detailed explanations, but no real progress to show. The Buddha used this moment to teach a powerful lesson. He said, "Words without action are like a beautiful flower without fragrance. They may catch the eye, but they lack substance. They promise something lovely, yet deliver nothing." In ancient royal courts, these were the advisors who promised military victories, political alliances, or abundant harvests. Their language was rich, their tone convincing, but their hands remained empty. And today, we see them everywhere. The colleague who always has a brilliant new plan, but never follows through. The friend who's about to change their life for years. The team leader who makes bold declarations in meetings but never delivers results. What makes Buddha's teaching about Vakaya Parama so insightful is that he recognized many of these individuals genuinely believe their own promises. In the Anguttara Nikaya, he explains that people often mistake talking about something for actually doing it. And in that illusion, they trap not only themselves, but everyone who trusts them. The lesson: judge not the promise, but the pattern. True integrity reveals itself not in how grand someone speaks, but in the quiet consistency of what they do. The Buddha teaches that some individuals mistake the pleasure of talking about goals for the satisfaction of actually achieving them. They become intoxicated with their own rhetoric, convincing not only others, but themselves, that speaking with conviction is the same as living with discipline. These individuals, known as Vakaya Parama or empty promisers, are more dangerous than they appear. Let me share a lesser-known story that highlights how the Buddha handled one such person. During a severe drought in the kingdom of Kosala, food grew scarce and people were on the edge of despair. Crops failed, rivers dried up, and the sky remained relentlessly clear. Amidst this crisis, a man stepped forward in the town square. He claimed to possess secret rituals to summon rain. His speeches were mesmerizing. He spoke of ancient wisdom, mysterious ceremonies, and a personal bond with weather spirits. People listened with hope and desperation, clinging to every word. The man became a local sensation. Townspeople gave him food, shelter, even their most precious offerings. Day after day, he described new rites and more intricate rituals. But the skies stayed dry. When questioned, he always had an excuse, a sign they had missed, a new ritual they had to try, or a prediction slightly misunderstood. Each failure became a stage for a more elaborate promise. Buddha, who was staying nearby at the time, used the situation to teach a powerful lesson. He explained that the harm caused by empty promisers lies not only in their broken words, but in the way they distract people from real solutions. While the townsfolk focused on the rainmaker's speeches, they neglected their fields, delayed practical water-saving efforts, and ignored the wisdom of experienced farmers. Precious time was lost. This same pattern still plays out today. Think of the coworker who's always full of big ideas, but never follows through. Or the friend who's forever about to change their life, yet spends all their energy collecting self-help books instead of taking action. Buddha identified 4 specific signs of an empty promiser. They dwell on past accomplishments to avoid acting in the present. They make grand future promises to dodge immediate responsibility. They overcomplicate simple tasks with endless planning and talk. When confronted with failure, they respond with even bigger promises. But here's the most profound insight. The Buddha taught that these people often suffer more than those they mislead. They live in a constant state of always on the verge of transformation, but never crossing the threshold. They chase the illusion of progress and never experience the quiet joy of real achievement. The third type of false companion, perhaps the most dangerous of all, is the one the Buddha called the secret enemy, or papamitta. Unlike the sweet talker who dazzles with charm, or the empty promiser who overwhelms with words, this person hides their true intentions beneath a carefully constructed mask of genuine friendship. Their deception is more insidious because it's not what they show, it's what they hide. The Buddha warned, not all smiles hide teeth, but all teeth hide behind smiles. It's a poetic way of saying that just because someone appears kind and supportive doesn't mean their heart holds good intentions. And in the case of the papamitta, the surface of friendship conceals deep-seated envy, bitterness, or malice. There is a chilling story from the Buddha's time about a young merchant's son named Vedika. He had a best friend from childhood, someone who had grown up alongside him, played with him, studied with him, and been present for every major life event. This friend knew everything about Vedika: his business dealings, personal habits, relationships, even his fears. Everyone believed their bond was unbreakable. But beneath this lifelong friendship, a darker truth festered. As Vedika's business flourished, his friend's ventures repeatedly failed. Each of Vedika's successes deepened the quiet resentment inside his so-called friend. Rather than being inspired or proud, The friend saw Vedikar's achievements as personal defeats. And that resentment began to take form, not openly, but in subtle, damaging ways. He began to exploit the trust and closeness he had built over the years. A quiet word here, a gentle suggestion there, each laced with hidden malice. He offered misleading business advice, planted doubts about loyal allies, and slowly isolated Vedikar from his network. The betrayal was so well disguised that Vedikar didn't see it until the damage was already done. This is the true danger of the papamitta. They are not just harmful, they are invisible until it's too late. They use your trust as their weapon, your openness as their advantage. And because they know you so well, they strike precisely where you're most vulnerable. Buddha's teaching reminds us to be discerning not only of a person's words but of their patterns. True friends uplift and protect. Papamittas conceal harm behind affection. Their smiles may seem sincere, but their intentions are quietly destructive. Vedikar's so-called friend knew everything. His trade routes, his business partners, even the personal secrets of his family. This intimate knowledge became a map for sabotage. He didn't need to attack Vedikar directly. He simply planted seeds of doubt, strained key relationships, and whispered carefully chosen words that slowly turned trusted allies into suspicious skeptics. The Buddha explained that the papamitta, or secret enemy, is uniquely dangerous because they weaponize trust itself. They don't strike from the outside like a rival might. They operate from within, disguising their harm as concern, their sabotage as support. This type of betrayal cuts deeper because it comes wrapped in the appearance of loyalty. This ties directly into the Buddhist understanding of karma, not just as a simple chain of cause and effect, but as intentional action rooted in the mind. The papamitta creates negative karma in two distinct ways. First, through satana, or harmful intent, and second, by causing others to develop mistrust, which breeds dukkha, or suffering. Their actions violate ahimsa, the principle of non-harming, while masquerading as friendship. This kind of deception is particularly corrosive to the fabric of community and personal well-being. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha outlined 4 distinct signs of a secret enemy. They celebrate your failures privately, while mourning them in public for appearance's sake. They downplay your successes, cloaking envy with subtle, concerned-sounding critiques. They betray your trust, sharing your secrets with others while pretending to protect your confidence. They study your weaknesses, not to support you, but to exploit them when the time is right. But the story of Vedikar takes an unexpected emotional turn. When he finally uncovered the truth about his lifelong friend's betrayal, his initial reaction wasn't rage, it was crushing guilt. He blamed himself for not seeing the signs, for trusting too deeply, for letting his guard down. Buddha, seeing Vedikar in this state of despair, offered a teaching that would transform his perspective. A secret enemy does not succeed by strength, but by our blindness to their nature. They are like termites in a wooden pillar. The damage isn't obvious until the structure is ready to collapse. This wisdom reminds us that awareness, not paranoia, is the key to protecting ourselves. When we see clearly, we choose our companions with discernment, and preserve the integrity of our inner circle. In Vedikar's story, the truth finally surfaced when his friend made a critical mistake. During a tense business negotiation, he accidentally revealed information he had no right to know. Details that were only possible to uncover by secretly sabotaging Vedikar's prior deals. For a moment, the mask slipped. The polished charm and concerned facade couldn't hide the reality anymore. Vedikar realized he had been betrayed not by a stranger, but by someone he once considered a brother. Today, secret enemies operate in subtler, more sophisticated ways. They might be the coworker who forwards your private emails to a supervisor, under the guise of raising concerns. Or the friend who casually shares your most personal struggles with others, claiming they just needed advice. Sometimes, they're even a family member, someone who remembers every mistake you've made and brings them up at precisely the worst possible moments, always with a smile and a tone of concern. But the Buddha's teachings on this type of person, papamitta, go far deeper than simply exposing their behavior. He sought to answer a deeper question. Why do people become secret enemies in the first place? Buddha taught that these individuals are often not born malicious. More often, they are wounded, hurt by life, by comparison, by their own failures. And rather than healing, they let resentment shape their worldview. Over time, this resentment becomes a lens through which they interpret every interaction. They begin to believe their betrayals are justified, that your success somehow came at their expense, and their manipulation is merely balancing the scales. In their eyes, they're not the villain, they're the victim. This leads us to a powerful insight. The secret enemy's most dangerous weapon isn't what they know about us, it's what they make us believe about ourselves. They plant doubts. They question your decisions under the guise of helpful advice. They make you second-guess your instincts. Over time, you may begin to trust them more than your own judgment. And that is their ultimate victory. Buddha's guidance was not to respond with hatred, but with clarity. To see clearly is to break the illusion. The key isn't to live in suspicion, but to develop the wisdom to discern which relationships nourish our spirit, and which quietly corrode it. The fourth and final type of harmful companion that Buddha warned about is the enabler. Unlike the previous three, who may deceive, manipulate, or break promises, the enabler does not intend to cause harm. Their actions stem from a place of good intentions, but as Buddha taught, good intentions alone don't prevent real damage. The enabler, or apayasahaya in Buddha's words, may be the most relevant type in our modern world because their danger lies in something more subtle: toxic comfort. The enabler does not maliciously plot against others like the secret enemy, nor do they charm and deceive like the sweet talker or make empty promises like the empty promiser. Instead, they offer something different: comfort, but at the cost of growth. They offer ease and reassurance when what is needed is tough love or constructive criticism. Buddha warned that comfort in decline is still decline. While these people may seem supportive, their encouragement often leads us further away from our goals, even if they don't realize it. Buddha told the story of a young monk named Channa, whose case perfectly illustrates the harm of the enabler. Channa was not a bad person. In fact, he was known for his kindness, generosity, and willingness to help others. But Channa had friends who continuously encouraged his weaknesses, never challenging his behavior or pushing him to be better. When Channa skipped meditation to sleep in, his friends said, "You need the rest." When he broke his vows or neglected his precepts, they would say, "You're only human." When he failed to fulfill his duties, they would reassure him, "You work too hard anyway." These friends meant well, and they genuinely cared about Channa. They wanted him to be happy and comfortable. But as Buddha pointed out, their kindness was actually leading him down a path of spiritual destruction. Buddha compared these friends to those who, out of concern, would help someone drink poison, because they didn't want to upset them by saying, "No." In the monastery, Channa's situation grew worse. As his friends continued to support his weaknesses, those weaknesses grew larger. His small lapses became habitual, his occasional breaks turned into permanent absences, and his minor excuses evolved into firm justifications. The more his enablers indulged him, the more he strayed from his path of discipline and growth. Buddha's teaching here is a powerful reminder. Sometimes, love and kindness require us to say no, to stop enabling behaviors that hinder growth, even if it means discomfort in the short term. Buddha identified 4 distinct ways that enablers harm us, and their impact on our lives can be profound. First, they support us in neglecting our duties. Instead of encouraging us to take responsibility, they help us avoid the discomfort of doing what we should. Second, they enable us to justify our mistakes, telling us it's okay to slip up and that we're only human. Third, they help us avoid necessary challenges, making life seem easier than it really is. And fourth, they make decline feel comfortable, masking the painful truth that we're not progressing but stagnating. What's most striking about Buddha's teachings on enablers is that they often appear as our most supportive friends. They're the ones who always agree with us, never challenge us, and make us feel good about staying exactly where we are. These friends create a false sense of security, where we believe that comfort equals happiness. In Channa's case, his wake-up call came during a powerful storm. While other monks maintained their practices despite the harsh conditions, Channa sought refuge with his enabling friends, who reassured him that skipping his duties was okay. That night, Buddha asked him a question that cut through all his justifications. Is the path to enlightenment meant to be comfortable or true? Buddha's words shook Channa, revealing the painful truth that true growth requires discomfort. Today, enablers can be found everywhere. They might be the friends who encourage us to skip work when we're just lazy, not sick. They could be the family members who support our unhealthy habits because they don't want to see us struggle. On social media, they are the people who validate our worst impulses, making self-care sound better than self-discipline. The sad truth is that it is often easier to stay comfortable in decline than to embrace the discomfort necessary for growth. We tend to surround ourselves with people who support our weaknesses, rather than those who challenge us to overcome them. Buddha's insight into the nature of enablers reveals something profound about human nature. We seek comfort over growth. This tendency is not unique to our time, but is a repeated pattern of human behavior throughout history. However, Buddha didn't share these warnings to make us paranoid or distrustful. Rather, he offered these teachings to help us cultivate healthier, more genuine relationships. True friends, Buddha taught, are like stars in the night sky. They don't just shine when we look at them, they don't hide their light. They guide us toward our true path and never lead us astray. The question isn't whether we'll encounter these 4 types. We will. The real question is whether we'll have the wisdom to recognize them, the courage to address them, and the strength to choose better relationships. Because in the end, the company we keep shapes the person we become. Buddha's teachings help us discern the relationships that elevate us from those that drag us down, leading us to true growth and happiness. Buddha's teachings on the 4 types of people were never meant to instill fear or suspicion. Rather, they were intended to cultivate wisdom. In the Mangala Sutta, Buddha emphasized that choosing our relationships wisely is one of the greatest blessings. It's not wealth, not fame, but the simple yet profound act of surrounding ourselves with true friends that brings us the most benefit. When we look around at our lives, whether in the workplace, social circles, or closest relationships, it's important to recognize the 4 types Buddha warned about. The sweet talkers who charm but never deliver, the empty promisers who speak but never act, the secret enemies who smile but harbor darkness, and the enablers who comfort but prevent growth. Buddha's teaching offers 3 powerful steps for transformation, helping us navigate these relationships and find the ones that truly serve us. First, Buddha teaches us to watch the patterns, not the promises. True friends reveal themselves through consistent actions, not just occasional words. Like gold tested in fire, true friends demonstrate their loyalty and worth in times of trouble. Words alone can be deceiving, but actions over time show us who really has our back. Second, Buddha urges us to cultivate discernment, not suspicion. This is not about becoming paranoid, but about developing wisdom. Wisdom doesn't come from jumping to conclusions. It comes from careful observation and introspection. As Buddha said, wisdom arises from meditation. Without meditation, wisdom declines. The key is to recognize the two-way path of gain and loss in relationships and to conduct ourselves in ways that enhance our wisdom, rather than deplete it. Finally, Buddha teaches us to choose growth over comfort. The path to any worthy goal always involves some discomfort. True friends won't just support us, they will challenge us to become better versions of ourselves. They will help us stretch our limits and push us beyond what feels easy, guiding us toward growth and improvement. Before you leave today, take a moment to contemplate a question Buddha often asked his disciples. If the company you keep doesn't lead you toward wisdom, compassion, and truth, where exactly is it leading you? Reflect on one relationship in your life that lifts you higher, challenges you to grow, and brings out your best self. Let them know how much they mean to you. This is the kind of connection Buddha encouraged us to cultivate. A relationship that nurtures your growth and supports your path toward wisdom. As you reflect on the relationships in your life and the wisdom Buddha shared, remember that cultivating true, meaningful connections is essential for growth. If you found this video insightful and want to explore more teachings from Buddhism, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Daily Buddhism Wisdom channel. By subscribing, you'll gain access to more lessons that can help you navigate life with greater awareness, compassion, and wisdom. Join our community, and let's walk the path of mindfulness together. Thank you for watching. and may your journey toward enlightenment be filled with clarity and peace.